Hi, this is Jason Nickleby, Assistant Director with the Minnesota State High School League, and this is basketball officiating training tape number 3. Off to a good start with the season, close to a month in already, which is really hard to believe. But we've done a nice job so far. A couple things to clean up relative to game management. Um, Working with players on proper uniform compliance and so on. It's not a major issue, just something we need to clean up a little bit. And then, getting the first foul and not letting plays evolve into a little bit more physicality than we'd like to see. But outside of those things, again, not major items, doing a nice job. Let's stay the course, keep up the good work on getting our nose in the rules books and the mechanics manual, and having good pre-games. So again, when we're looking at these plays, not picking on any one official, crew, player, or team, just trying to learn from these and hopefully start conversations with our crews as we prepare for our games over the holiday break. So with that, let's take a look at the plays. Okay, transition play here, and we talked about in the opening here about physicality and calling the first foul and not letting games get away from us from a physical standpoint. In this case, we have pretty significant contact between the dribbler and the defensive player, and we no call this play. And I feel that this is pretty significant contact, and we can't go with a no call. Um, Offensive foul, block, you know, pick something when we have this much contact and both players go to the floor. We would want to whistle on this. And if you're going to err on the side of anything, I would err on the side of an offensive foul because most of the time they do establish legal guarding position and they maintain it legally. In this case, I think she does. Gets 2 feet on the ground, faces our opponent, maintains it legally. Significant contact, probably should be an offensive foul here. But if you're not sure, 50-50, and you're going to put air in the whistle, I would lean on the side of a charge. I think it just cleans the game up. It doesn't incentivize driving down the paint, just running people over, which is what we have here in my mind. So this would be Leeds primary. And again, let's call the first foul. Don't let really physical plays go because it has a tendency to make the games more physical and can get out of control quickly. Okay, in this one, front court possession, Lee does a nice job of rotating to get to ball side at the initial part of this possession. And then we're going to have a traveling violation that is called by the C, and then we'll have a backcourt throw-in. So first, from a traveling perspective, remember if we can put them off the ground when they get the ball, great. And they can do more with pivot feet rather, etc. That's great. However, in this case, she establishes a pivot foot of the right foot, then she jumps and then kind of skips and comes back to the right. So this is definitely a traveling violation and one we want called, and we get it, so that's great. And then from a resumption of play standpoint, take a look at Rule 7.5. 3B in particular, if we have a violation and we're going to have a throw-in as we do here, and it's going to be in the team's backcourt, then the throw-in shall be at the designated spot nearest to where the foul, violation, or other stoppage in play occurred. If it's in the front court, it's going to be at one of the 4 tick marks. So as you notice on this little replay, hard to see, but they do put the throw in at the correct spot. So well done by the crew to pick up the traveling violation. Just good coverage and rotation here. We're in excellent position, and then a nice job of understanding resumption of play rules and putting the ensuing throw in at the correct spot. So well done by the crew on this play, rules, and mechanics. Okay, in this one, we're going to have a backcourt throw-in. Um, Not a lot of pressure, one defender back there, so totally fine if the center is going to make their way down court. Probably could be at the division line um, to assist if needed, but by and large, this is going to be handled by the trail. Um, from a positioning standpoint, trails, um, I like the hustle and that we want to get up the floor. That's great. But stay a good step behind that last player because as you see here, the pass that goes cross court, it does get deflected, but at the time that it does get deflected, we are pretty much straight lined um, from seeing that it is in fact tipped. We get the call correct, but we just want to make sure we're in the best possible position to see everything. And when we get too far up the court, we end up looking through this player and we might miss this. We don't, so that's great, but just keep that in mind as it relates to positioning. And then when the ball is tipped out of bounds like this, the throw in is going to be at the spot where it goes out of bounds, and that's indicated in Rule 752, resumption of play procedure, uh, similar to what we talked about on the previous play, but in this case, a deflection out of bounds. The other piece is in high school basketball, anytime that we have a throw in where the ball gets deflected out of bounds, et cetera, violation, foul, whatever it happens to be, the offense gets a new 10-second backcourt count. And as you see here, when it goes out of bounds, the shot clock's at 31 seconds, and that's great. It needs to stay there because we go on to have a timeout. So we need to communicate with both teams that, hey, they get a new 10 seconds. They have until 21 on the shot clock before they have committed a backcourt violation. And when we call timeout, we don't change throw-in spots. Now, in this case, it's a backcourt throw-in, but let's say it was a front court throw-in. We wouldn't change it to a 28-foot mark throw-in. We would leave it at the spot where we have it currently. So we do that here, but just a reminder, when we have a ball that's deflected out of bounds, they get a brand new 10, and it's important to communicate to the coaches and to the teams that we are going to go all the way down to 21 before we have a backcourt violation because they're going to be really upset and screaming for a backcourt violation at 25 when in fact they get until 21. So just a reminder to communicate when we have a shot clock less than 35 that they have 10 seconds from that adjusted time to get the ball across. Okay, transition play here as well. Ball is going to get kicked out to the top of the key and a dribble drive down that lane line, and we're going to have a blocking foul called by the trail with 2 shots for the offensive player. So, couple things. One, we've talked about on previous tapes that we should trust our partner to make calls in their area and at the very least have a very slow whistle. And if we have something from trail or C, we should just post and hold. Um, in this dribble drive case, from trail, it's going away from us and it's entering the lead's primary coverage area. We should really defer to the lead to make a decision on this. Um, I think that she gets to the side of the torso of the defender who has legal guarding position, and the the contact is not really significant. Um, she goes to the floor, I understand, but I think this is probably a no call, but at the very least, it's the lead's decision to make because they know how that defender got there. Just like with any secondary defender, they know why they got there. And remember, secondary defender related plays in the paint, the primary official for ruling on those plays is the lead anyway. So we should really defer to the lead on this. I like that we close on the action and give good spot mechanics and that we give shots here. If we're going to call this a block, then we do need to give this shooter 2 shots, and we do a nice job of that. So I like the coverage as far as closing in spot mechanics, communicating with our partner, and giving shots. I just think this is the lead's play, and we should defer to the lead to have the first crack at this. And I think had we done that, I think we would have had a patient whistle and allowed this to play out with likely a no call coming from that decision. But again, trust our partner, let the lead have first crack at this, and if we have a whistle from C or trail, we should post and hold before making any kind of preliminary signal. Okay, in this front court set, we're in good position. I like how the lead comes out to the sideline area and mirrors the basketball here, and then officiates into the paint, which is the lead's primary responsibility. We're in good position, trail right at the 28-foot mark, officiating this competitive matchup, and the C is in good position as well. And when I saw this play the first time, I almost jumped out of my chair and cheered and yelled because this is an awesome call. Awesome mechanics, an awesome job of picking up the secondary defender. She gets legal guarding position. However, she establishes initial legal guarding position in the restricted area, and this is properly called as a restricted area blocking foul, and we use excellent mechanics. We signal a foul, signal a block, and we point at the restricted area. So this is excellent mechanics and judgment by the lead. We're in perfect position, the entire crew, and we just do an awesome job of officiating this play. This is exactly what we want to do. This is exactly the call and the mechanics that we want for restricted area blocking fouls. And this is exactly the situation that we're talking about. If you establish an initial legal guarding position in the restricted area for the purpose of taking a charge, that is a restricted area blocking foul, and that's exactly what this is. If we felt they were moving into her, it's just a regular blocking foul. In this case, I think she gets to that position. However, she's in the restricted area and is properly called for a restricted area blocking foul. So awesome job by the lead here and the crew. Great mechanics, great call, exactly what we want to see. Okay, heading down in transition, and we're going to have a drive initiated from the center side into the middle of the paint, who then dumps it down to the block on the center side for a layup attempt. On this play, the foul is called by the lead across the paint. Remember, if we don't have a secondary defender involved blocking type foul action, then we're going to draw a line right down the middle of the paint, and anything to that side of the center is the center's primary area of coverage, and the lead would have the other side of the lane. So let's slow down our processing. Let's slow down our whistle, allow the uh, covering official, the primary covering official, to have the first crack. And if they don't and we have to come get something, then we can do that. But let's take a breath on that and make sure that we allow the primary coverage, primary covering official a chance. And then I'm not sure who we call the foul on here. Um, if we call it on the player on the inside, number 12, it looks like, I can live with that. It's hard to tell on this replay. Can't tell if she gets her or not. But just slow down our processing. Again, anything on that side of the paint, we're going to allow the center first crack at it. Doesn't mean we won't call it from lead, but we just need to slow down our processing. And then certainly a reason why we would want to slow it down is, let's say that number 12 really doesn't get her hand in there and it's just number 3. We would be guessing from lead because of looking through the offensive player's stomach, and we would, as you see on the replay, there really isn't much for contact by number 3. and we would be guessing if we call across the paint. So just be careful. I don't think we call that here. I think we call it on 12, but just want to remind our crews on primary coverage area, slow, patient whistle if it's not your primary, and then post and hold, and then you can have a discussion, and then whoever the primary covering official is can take the foul to the table. Okay, on this one, we're going to have a dribble drive right down the middle of the paint, and we're going to have a foul called on the defense number 23 by the trail. So, a couple things. One, definitely, I believe it is a foul, and it is in the trail's area of responsibility because it is in that free throw semicircle um, when the foul occurs. So I'm good. I'm good there. Um, the only other thing to consider here, or there's a couple things. One, if we think the contact occurs after that offensive player has gathered the basketball, then we need to consider giving this offensive player 2 shots. So um, I'm okay with a throw in and not giving shots. Maybe a patient whistle, and we could sell giving free throws. If we blow the whistle immediately, it's hard to give free throws. But if we wait a second, take a deep breath here, and call the foul a little bit later in the sequence, then I think we can give shots and no one would be um, all that surprised by doing so. But we decide not to. Okay, that's fine. But remember, because it's in that semi-circle, the free throw semi-circle there, and that is the trail's responsibility who calls the foul, which is great. But when the foul or violation occurs in that area, the throw-in needs to be on the end line at one of the uh, 3-foot marks um, on the end line, not at the sideline at the 28-foot mark. The only reason we'd have a throw-in out there is if it's outside of the semicircle, outside the 3-point line, or that line from the elbow down to the 3-point line where it intersects the end line. If it's above that, then it's going to be on the sideline. Below that, the throw-in needs to be on the end line. So um, I like the foul here. Just maybe slow down our our processing as far as blowing the whistle and going through that process. To slow it down by a second or two, and then I think we can give them shots. We don't, fine. So then let's make sure that we put the throw in the correct location. Okay, front court throw in here, and we're working through something with the table, and we're ready now. So we get into correct position to officiate this front court play, and we're going to have a backdoor cut with a foul from the center side who properly calls this defender for a foul. And this is excellent coverage. I like how we close. Definitely a foul. As you can see, number 3 gets beat backdoor and then plays through the back of the shooter, and he's properly called for a foul. So that's excellent. Definitely a foul. Definitely in the center's primary coverage area who calls the foul, and we allow the center to do that. And we're in good position to view this. And so this is really well done from that perspective. The only thing I would clean up on this play is the signal that we use. Again, I like that we close. I like that we had the primary covering official responsible for calling this the only whistle on this play. That's awesome. All of it great. The only thing I would consider is the signal we use. We use the pushing signal, and this player definitely plays through the back of the shooter, but it's not a push. This defender has 2 hands in the air, and anytime we use the pushing signal and their hands in the air, we tend to invite criticism because they say, well, that didn't happen. But this would be the perfect opportunity to use that walk-in signal where they body them out. And when we take that signal to the table, we put 2 hands in the air and we take 1 step forward, and that's us demonstrating what actually occurred. When we use signals, we want to use signals of what actually occurred on the court. Don't use a signal that didn't actually happen, because that tends to erode our credibility as a crew. Again, great call, great positioning, great close, great spot mechanics, all of that great. The only thing I would change is the signal, because if our hands are in the air, it isn't really a push. And there's a reason we put all of these different signals in the mechanics manual, because we want you as officials to have the opportunity to tell a story to the crowd, to the players, to the coaches about this is what occurred on the court and this is why I'm stopping the game to call a foul. And in this case, if we use that walled up type signal, walking into signal, at the table, that will really sell our program about, yep, we have a foul, and yep, it wasn't a push. It was the defender using his body to block that player out from behind and body them out. And if we use that signal, just it would be perfectly polished, and it would take a great call, which we have here, into almost perfect. Okay, transition play here, and we have a really tough play for the lead to process all of this, and we do a really nice job on this play of putting this all together and working with our crewmates. So we're gonna have a drive right down the paint in transition. It's in the lead's primary coverage area, and he makes the call. And as you see here on the replay, the primary defender, number 13, bumps the shooter as he's going into that secondary defender. So that's who we call it on, and that is the proper call in my mind. That's the initial foul. And then 24 does commit a blocking foul, but because 13 committed the foul first, there is no blocking foul on that secondary defender. Had 13 not bumped into number 2, I believe this would be just a regular blocking foul, and we would shoot. So we do a nice job of picking that up. That initial foul was on number 13 there for bumping, and not the block on 24. And I like how we just post and we have a conversation with the trail who's coming down and helps close to officiate the dead ball area. And then we bring in the center into the conversation to have a conversation. One, do we have the correct fouling player? And then two, confirming that the ball does in fact go in the basket, so we should only be shooting one free throw. And we take that to the table and properly communicate that with everyone in the arena. So very well done. We're in good position. We call the correct foul. We just post and hold. We can get out of anything at that point. We can call whatever we need to. When we make a preliminary signal, we've kind of committed ourselves. In this case, we just post and hold. We have a communication with the crew. It's going to be on 13. Count the basket. We're going to shoot one, and then we take that to the table. So awesome job by the lead. Great job of picking up the correct foul, not going too fast, and then a good job of bringing in the rest of your crew to have a conversation about scoring the basket and how we're going to proceed. Well done. Okay, another transition play here. We're coming down as the trail, and we get to the 28-foot mark, and we stop and officiate the matchup, which is great. And we call a traveling violation. So a couple things. One, like our positioning, like that we're stationary and we're officiating in our primary coverage area, which includes this particular sequence. And then we put the throw-in in the correct spot at the nearest spot to the violation for a backcourt throw-in. So that's all great. Couple things. First, from a traveling perspective, again, picking up the pivot foot when they gather the basketball is if they pick it up and then put it back down prior to releasing for a pass or shot, that would be a traveling violation. So if you look at it again here on the replay, you'll see that the pivot foot that is established is the right foot, as you see there, picks it up, puts it back down, and then passes. So that would be a traveling violation. However, if an arm bar or a knee or displacement causes that traveling violation, we really should be calling a foul instead. So I think in this particular case, I think that he does travel, but I believe it's caused by the arm bar on the dribbler, as you see here on the replay. He's got an arm bar on him the whole time, and then he subsequently travels. So I believe that the proper ruling in this particular play would have been an arm bar foul and a front court throw-in for the offense versus a traveling violation. Does he travel? Yes, but I think he got pushed into that travel. So therefore, we should have called an armbar foul, taken an armbar to the table and reported it, and again, move forward with a throw-in in the front court. Okay, we've talked about calling the first foul and not letting games get too physical or out of control, but at the same time, that doesn't mean that we just call stuff just for the sake of calling things or look for things to call. If there's no foul to call, there just isn't anything to call. And in this particular case, this sequence is just really well officiated in my mind. We have a lot of plays that would make many officials nervous or anxious because you're like, there's a lot going on here. There has to be something in here, but I just don't see a foul in this sequence until the very end, which is the one that we called. I just think there's a lot of good verticality. I think we get the ball. There's no displacement. Player rises vertically in his space right there, which he can do. We don't want to penalize defenders when they use legal legal maneuvers. And again, in this case, I just see a lot of defenders jumping straight up in the air or getting the ball. And the crew does a nice job of not anticipating that a foul is going to occur, and they don't make anything up. They allow the players to play defense, and sometimes there's going to be incidental contact. And the only, again, at the end, there is a foul that's called, and I'm good with that. And there is a time where a player from the offense goes to the floor, but I think he kind of puts himself there um, in this sequence. But again, we want to call the first foul when it's there. We don't want to let it get away from us and get too out of control physical. But in this case, the defenders jump vertically in their space, play really good defense, block the ball, stay vertical, etc., and shouldn't be penalized, and they aren't by the crew on this particular play sequence. So good job of not anticipating a foul. If there is one to call, then let's call it. But if it's not there, don't make it up. Don't anticipate. Allow the defense to play good defense, and they do here. So nice job by the crew of handling this play sequence. Unfortunately, as good as we were on the last play and not anticipating and not calling fouls when they weren't there, on this sequence, we just missed way too many fouls. Way too much um, contact is allowed to occur on this play. And we end up getting one, but after about 3 or 4 fouls have already occurred. So again, don't anticipate. Don't make things up, but when fouls are there, we need to put air in the whistle. We need to call them, especially these ones where there's pretty physical plays. You see here at the top here, this offensive player gets bodied right out of bounds by number 23, and the center needs to call that. They need to work their way up a little bit higher and pick that up. And if need be, the trail needs to come across the court and pick it up. And we don't call it. So then they turn the ball over and should have had a foul. And then we come down the other end and transition, and you notice that this offensive player number 1 goes up to shoot and just gets completely undercut by number 5, and we don't call it. This is a shooting foul, and we have to call it. So first of all, foul on 23, got to call that. We don't call it. And then number 5 just completely wipes out the shooter. And then to compound things, we do finally call a foul on the defense, but we don't give them shots. So as a crew on this sequence, it's a prime example of why calling the first foul just gets us out of trouble. When we allow it to continue and just get out of control like this physically, bad things just tend to happen to the game and to the crew. And so, had we just called this one right here, we wouldn't be talking about this undercut foul or anything else on this play sequence. And so we didn't do ourselves any favors by not calling that first one. So make sure we get into the right position to pick it up, know which official is supposed to get it, and then let's call the first foul so we don't have this really excessive contact at the other end of the floor, because we didn't call that first one. So that's the key here. Make sure we call the first one, and make sure we get air in the whistle on really physical plays. Okay, that will do it for training tape number 3. Couple things to consider as we head into the holiday break. Number 1, stay safe and healthy. We need you for the stretch run. We're doing a nice job so far. Just a couple things to tighten up. But from this tape and from others, some key considerations. Primary coverage area, who has the initial ruling in a play sequence. Make sure that we're not having double and triple whistles all over the place by communicating and pre-gaming who's responsible for what. We will have double whistles, they will happen, but we just need to limit them by deferring to the primary coverage official to pick up the fouls or violations in their area, or no calls, depending on the situation. And then let's call the first foul. Don't let it get out of control physical, because that's what tends to happen. It just ramps up until we have a really big collision or similar. So call the first foul, trust your partner, call the stuff in your space and get on top of that, and then continue to work on really good communication with coaches and players. Again, doing a nice job with that as well, but let's keep working on that and have a safe holiday. Enjoy some time with family and friends if you're able to do so. And we're looking forward to getting you back out there for some tournaments after that break, and then we'll be into 2025. So with that, thanks again for watching these. Watch on Arbiter all of these tapes by January 20th to be considered for a state tournament assignment. And again, appreciate all of your work. Have a great break, and we'll see you in the new year.